Welcome today in New Adventure Audiobooks. At 14,000 feet above sea level, the air felt thin and sharp, like breathing through glass. Every step burned my lungs. The wind howled across the ridge, stealing heat from my body faster than I could generate it. I checked my phone. No signal. I checked my GPS. Frozen. I turned around to look for the trail I had just climbed. It was gone. Not hidden. Not unclear. Gone. That was the moment I understood something I had never truly faced before. I wasn't lost in a forest. I wasn't lost near a road. I was lost in one of the largest mountain ranges in North America. And no one knew exactly where I was. The journey begins. I had dreamed about the Rocky Mountains since I was a teenager. The photographs never felt real enough. The scale, the silence, the feeling that the earth itself was bigger than anything I had ever known. This trip wasn't supposed to be extreme, just a solo hike along one of the popular high-altitude trails in Colorado. A challenge, yes, but a safe one. I planned everything: food for 3 days, water purification tablets, thermal clothing, emergency flashlight, portable charger. I even told myself I was being responsible. The ranger station at the entrance looked small against the massive walls of stone behind it. The man behind the desk glanced at my backpack and nodded. "Weather looks good. Just stay on the marked path." I smiled and said I would. The trail started gently. Pine trees, birds, sunlight cutting through mist. The kind of scenery that makes you forget how fragile the human body really is. I walked for hours, climbing higher, breathing slower, feeling smaller. The mountains didn't feel dangerous. They felt peaceful. That's what made it easy to ignore the first warning sign. The clouds. They moved faster than the forecast predicted. Not dark yet. Just thick, heavy. I told myself I would turn back after one more viewpoint. Just one more. That decision would cost me everything. The first real mistake didn't feel like a mistake at all. It felt like curiosity. The trail split into two narrow paths. One continued straight, marked with a faded wooden sign. The other curved toward a ridge, where the clouds were rolling in like slow waves. The sign said the viewpoint was half a mile away. Half a mile felt harmless. Half a mile felt close. I stood there for a full minute, listening to the wind, watching the fog climb the mountain like a living thing. I chose the ridge. At first, the path was still visible. Loose gravel, broken stones. But the higher I climbed, the less defined it became. The fog thickened. The world shrank to a circle no bigger than 10 feet around me. No birds, no wind, just silence. That was when my phone vibrated. Low battery. I stopped and checked my map again. The blue dot froze, then disappeared. I laughed, not because it was funny. Because sometimes, when fear is too big, the body reacts in strange ways. I told myself I would go back. But when I turned around, I couldn't tell which way I came from. Every direction looked the same. Gray fog, gray rock, endless space. I walked downhill, then uphill, then sideways. Nothing changed. That was the first time my breathing changed. Not tired, not slow, fast, shallow, panicked. I forced myself to stop, sit, think. Basic survival rules came back to me. Don't run, don't waste energy, don't make blind decisions. But knowing rules is different from following them when your heart is beating like it's trying to escape your chest. I checked my phone again. 3% battery. I switched it off. The silence returned, and with it, the realization, I had officially lost the trail. Realizing I was lost, time stopped behaving normally after that. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt unreal. The fog lifted slightly, but instead of relief, it revealed something worse. Nothing. No trail. No signs. No human sound. Just endless layers of rock, snow, and sky. I walked until my legs burned. Not in one direction. In many. I climbed over boulders. Slid down loose slopes. Shouted once. My voice vanished into the mountains. That was the moment the truth hit me. Not emotionally, not dramatically, logically. If I couldn't see the trail from here, and no one could see me from there, then no one was coming. Not today, maybe not tomorrow. I checked my supplies. 1 bottle of water left. 2 energy bars. 1 flashlight. No signal, no map, and night was coming. The temperature dropped fast. Mountains don't wait for you to prepare. The light turned orange, then purple, then blue. Shadows grew taller than me. I found a small hollow between rocks, blocked from the wind on 3 sides. It wasn't a shelter, but it was better than nothing. I wrapped myself in my thermal jacket, pulled my knees to my chest, and waited for the darkness. The cold wasn't pain, it was pressure, like the world was slowly squeezing the warmth out of me. My mind started drifting, not to panic, to memories, my room, my bed, simple things. That's when I understood the real danger. Not the mountain, not the weather, the human brain, because when it gets tired, it starts lying to you. It tells you it's okay to sleep. It tells you help is coming. It tells you to relax. And in the cold, sleep is how people disappear. So I stayed awake, counting my breaths, listening to my heartbeat, waiting for a sunrise I wasn't sure I would see. The cold didn't arrive suddenly. It crept in. First, my fingers went numb. Not painful, just distant, like they belonged to someone else. Then my feet, then my face. I tried rubbing my hands together, but my muscles felt slow, heavy, unresponsive. The kind of slow that makes simple movements feel complicated. The wind returned after midnight. Not loud, just constant. It found every gap in my clothing, every weakness. I checked my flashlight, 1 bar of battery left. I used it sparingly, short flashes, enough to remind myself I was still here. My thoughts became strange, not fear, not panic, comfort. I started feeling warm. That's when I knew something was wrong. I remembered reading about hypothermia, how the body lies, how people take off their clothes because they feel hot, how they sit down and never stand up again. I forced myself to move. Stand, sit, stand, press my back against the rock. Feel something solid. My teeth chattered so hard my jaw ached. But I stayed awake, because in the mountains, staying awake is survival. The sky slowly changed color. Black to dark blue to gray. When the sun finally touched the edge of the peaks, I cried. Not from sadness, from relief. I was still alive. Injury in the storm morning didn't bring safety. It brought a storm. The clouds returned, heavier than before. Snow started falling sideways, carried by violent wind. I knew I couldn't stay where I was. No food, no real shelter. I had to move. I chose downhill, not because it was right, because gravity felt logical. The snow hid everything, rocks, edges, drop-offs. Every step was a guess. Then it happened. My foot slipped on hidden ice. My body twisted, and I fell, hard. Pain exploded in my leg. Sharp, immediate, deep. I tried to stand. I couldn't. My ankle had already started swelling. The joint felt unstable, wrong. I sat there in the snow, staring at it. Not dramatic, not emotional, just calculating. No medical help, no phone, no one. Now I couldn't walk properly. The storm intensified, wind howling, snow blinding. This was no longer a hiking problem. This was a survival situation. I tore a strip from my shirt and wrapped my ankle tight. Not to heal it, just to make it usable. Then I did the only thing I could. I crawled, hands, knees, elbows. Every movement burned, not just pain, energy, calories, life. After what felt like hours, I found something impossible. A wooden structure, half buried in snow. An old ranger shelter. One wall broken, no door, but a roof. I dragged myself inside and collapsed. The storm screamed outside, but inside, it was quiet. I lay there, shaking, exhausted, injured, starving. And for the first time since I got lost, I felt something close to safety. The cold didn't arrive suddenly. It crept in. At first, it felt like nothing. Just a light discomfort, like sitting in an air-conditioned room for too long. Then my fingers stopped feeling real. I moved them in front of my eyes, but the movement felt delayed. As if my brain and my body were no longer connected properly. I tried rubbing my hands together. The sound was there, the motion was there, but the warmth wasn't. My breathing changed, not faster, slower. Each breath felt heavy, expensive, like my lungs were paying a price for every bit of oxygen. The wind returned after midnight. Not loud, not violent, just constant. It pressed against me like an invisible weight, finding every opening, every weakness in my clothing. I pressed my back against the rock wall, hoping it would block the wind. It didn't. The stone was colder than the air. I checked my flashlight again. One last bar of battery. I didn't want to turn it on. Light felt pointless. What I needed was heat. And there was none. My thoughts started drifting. Not to fear, not to panic, to comfort. I started thinking about simple things. My bed, warm food, hot showers, the sound of rain outside a window. That's when I felt it. Warmth. Not real warmth. Fake warmth. My body suddenly felt relaxed. Almost peaceful. And that terrified me, because I remembered something I once read: hypothermia doesn't feel like freezing. It feels like falling asleep. I slapped my own face. Hard. No pain. I stood up and almost fell over. My legs didn't respond immediately. They felt like they belonged to someone else. I forced myself to move. Small steps. Stomping. Jumping in place. Not for exercise. For survival. My teeth chattered so violently my jaw muscles cramped. But I welcomed the pain. Pain meant I was still awake. Still alive. Hours passed. Or minutes. Time had lost meaning. The sky slowly changed color. Black to dark blue. Dark blue to gray. When the first sunlight touched the edge of the mountains, I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just sat there, breathing, whispering. I made it through the night. Like it was a miracle. Because it was. Injury in the storm morning didn't bring hope. It brought reality. The storm arrived without warning. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just sudden. The clouds thickened. The wind shifted direction, and snow started falling sideways. Within minutes, visibility dropped to almost zero. The mountains disappeared. So did every possible landmark. I knew staying still meant death. Cold, hunger, dehydration. So I stood up, or tried to. My legs shook violently, not from fear, from exhaustion. I had burned too much energy during the night just staying conscious. I chose downhill, not because it was smart. Because gravity felt logical. I took slow steps, testing every surface before putting weight on it. Snow hid everything. Rocks, ice, edges. The world felt soft and dangerous at the same time. Then my foot slipped. There was no warning, no time to react, just a sudden loss of balance. My body twisted, and I fell. The impact knocked the air out of my lungs. Pain exploded through my leg like electricity. Sharp, deep, immediate. I screamed, not because of fear, because pain demands sound. I tried to stand. My ankle collapsed under my weight. The joint felt wrong, loose, unstable. I stared at it for a long time. Not emotionally, scientifically. Swelling, limited movement, extreme pain, sprain, or worse. Either way, walking was now a problem. And walking was the only thing keeping me alive. The storm intensified, wind screaming, snow burning my face. This was no longer a hiking trip. This was a survival scenario. I tore a long strip from my inner shirt and wrapped my ankle tightly. Not to heal it, just to keep it functional. Then I did something I never imagined myself doing. I crawled, hands, knees, elbows, dragging my body forward inch by inch. Every movement cost energy, calories, strength, things I couldn't afford to lose. My gloves were soaked. My hands started bleeding from ice and stone. I didn't feel it immediately. Pain arrived later. After what felt like hours of crawling, I saw something that didn't belong to the mountain. Straight lines, wood, human structure, a small ranger shelter, half collapsed, one wall broken, no door, but a roof. I dragged myself inside and collapsed onto the frozen floor. My body started shaking uncontrollably. Not from cold, from relief. For the first time since I got lost, I wasn't completely exposed to the mountain. For the first time, I felt something close to safety. The shelter extended. The shelter wasn't warm. It wasn't safe. It wasn't even stable, but it was not the open mountain. And that was enough. The inside smelled like old wood, dust, and something metallic. Probably rust. Probably time. Snow had entered through the broken wall and formed a thin white layer on the floor. The roof creaked every time the wind hit it. I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling. Not thinking, just breathing. My body felt heavy, like it weighed more than it should. Like gravity had increased only for me. Hunger arrived quietly. Not pain, not cramps, just emptiness. A hollow feeling in my stomach that slowly spread to my chest, my arms, my head. I ate one energy bar. Slowly, tiny bites. Not because I wanted to enjoy it. Because I needed it to last. That bar tasted like nothing. No flavor, no satisfaction, just fuel. The second bar, I didn't touch. That one was for later. For when, later, became dangerous. The hours passed strangely inside the shelter. No sunlight, no sound except wind and my own breathing. That's when my mind started doing strange things. I heard footsteps, soft, careful. I held my breath. Hello, I whispered. No answer. I heard it again. Footsteps on snow. Very close. My heart started racing. I forced myself to stand, leaning against the wall. Hello, is someone there? Silence. Then I realized something terrifying. The footsteps were my heartbeat, echoing in my ears. My brain was inventing sounds. Not because I was crazy. Because it was tired, starving, isolated. The human mind hates being alone. So it creates company. I sat back down and laughed quietly. Not happy, not sad, just exhausted. I started talking to myself. Out loud, about random things. My school, my favorite food, old memories. Not because I needed to say them. Because silence felt dangerous. When night returned, I wrapped myself in my jacket and tried to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw falling, slipping, the ankle breaking again and again. So I stayed awake, again. The signal on the second morning, something changed. Not outside, inside. I realized something simple and brutal. No one knew I was here. No one knew I had taken the ridge. No one knew I was injured. No one knew I was alive. Waiting was not a plan. Waiting was surrender. I searched the shelter, carefully, slowly. Behind a broken wooden bench, I found something incredible. An old emergency flare gun. Dusty, rusty, but real. I held it like it was gold. One flare, just one. That meant one chance. Not now, not in a storm, not in fog. I waited. Hours passed. The clouds slowly thinned. The wind softened. The light became clearer. I crawled outside and dragged myself onto a small open slope near the shelter. High ground. Visibility. I aimed the flare at the sky. My hand was shaking. Not from cold. From pressure. This was it. I pulled the trigger. The flare exploded into red fire, screaming into the sky like a dying star. Bright, loud, beautiful. Then silence. Nothing happened. 1 minute, 2, 5. I felt something inside me sink. Then, a sound. Not wind, not imagination. A helicopter. Far away, but real. I screamed. I waved my jacket. I fired the flashlight. The sound grew louder, closer. The helicopter appeared through the clouds like a mechanical miracle. I collapsed into the snow and cried. Not because I was saved. Because I had almost accepted that I wouldn't be. Rescue and life lesson: they found me half-conscious, dehydrated, hypothermic, with a severely sprained ankle and mild frostbite. The doctor later told me, another night out there, and you probably wouldn't have made it. In the hospital, surrounded by machines and white walls, the mountains felt unreal. Like a dream, but my body remembered. The weakness, the cold, the silence. I spent weeks recovering, but something never went back to normal. My relationship with comfort, with safety, with life. Because once you've been truly alone in nature, once you've realized how thin the line between living and disappearing is, you stop taking small things for granted. Warm rooms, food, voices, morning light. The mountains didn't try to kill me. They just reminded me of a truth we all forget. The world doesn't owe us survival. We earn it, with awareness, with humility, with respect, and sometimes, with one final signal fired into the sky, hoping someone is still listening.